Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this hearing to order and acknowledge that we're in 21 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, Dakota people, and then the national homelands of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this morning. To my left is the panel member Linda McFadden, and via Zoom is Ken Salim, and our assessor from the city of Winnipeg is Merrick Frolick, and our secretary is Jaswinder Kumar. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note that you will be placed in the waiting room until the property is called upon. Then it'll be your turn and you will be admitted to the meeting. Kindly follow along with the City of Winnipeg Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted. Bear with me for 1 second. Once you're admitted into the hearing, please close your or mute your YouTube player. You will then be admitted to speak in respect to your property. Once the hearing has been concluded, you may leave the hearing. This morning, we'll be hearing an application for revision of the assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at this hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the municipal board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to application for exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this morning, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have. It'll be then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side or each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this morning. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the record. This morning, we'll be hearing items on the docket 1, 2, 6, and 8. I ask Mr. Kumar to swear in or affirm the assessor and swear in the applicant, Mr. Newfield.
Thank you,
Mr. Kumar.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Merrick Frolick.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Newfield, please state your full name.
Rocky Newfield.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. I think all parties are familiar with the routine. So, Mr. Frolick, we're going to deal with 2477 Day Street. So the floor is yours, sir. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. File number is 223493. Roll number is 0900486750. The assessed value that we have in 2023 is $1,793,000. Some highlights of the property is that the properties have been built since 1940 to 1991. The wall heights are between 11 and 22 feet. It's zoned M2 for manufacturing. The land area is 249,169. The leasable area is 19,635, and the land to building ratio is 12.71, which is a lot higher than the standard of 4:1. Based on my conversations with the agent's representation, there is some unheated space in this property. I'd like to make a recommendation to $1,622,000 by reducing the rent to $3 for the unheated space.
Mr. Newfield, are you in agreement with the recommendation?
I don't think, no, I'm not, but I'm just looking, where's the detail of this workout on the spaces? Did you put this in your report?
No, I just have it,
Okay.
As a recommendation on a piece of paper here, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay, so if I'm looking then at your page 8, what was the what was the square footage that you had for the unheated?
On page 8, let me double check.
Out of the 19,
We have 19,635,
right?
and that's what I have on my recommendation in front of me.
No, but,
Okay, gentlemen, can I interrupt for 1 second? Mr. Newman, Mr. Newfield, you're not in agreement, so we'll let Mr. Pollock continue, then you may ask questions.
all I wanted to know was the amount that he has listed as unheated space.
Okay, you can ask that.
Yeah, I can answer that. Based on my conversations, I have 2740.
Out of that 1965. Okay.
That was based
thanks.
on conversations with Ayrton.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Okay. Thanks a lot.
I'm all above board, Mr. Neufeld. I'm all above board.
No. You're using then. We're just want to make sure we're using the same numbers. That's all. Okay.
So with that being said, property owner has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers. What I've been able to deduct from the mailer is that 12,451 square feet are owner occupied. And there's a semi-gross lease in place here for 1263 on 7184. And that can be seen on page 2 and on the top of page 3. I've never inspected this building, but the applicant has provided some pictures of the building in his brief. General overview of this property. The property is in Transcona, the northeast part of Winnipeg. In the industrial park, it's right very close to the corner of Day and Gun. I got some pictures on the bottom of page 4. And then on the top of page 5, I'm showing the land to building ratio, where you can actually see that there's a lot of surplus land and that there's potential for development. There was some discrepancy with regards to the square footage usage in the past. And what I've done on page 6 is I've just given an overall view of the 19,775 that I have highlighted here, but we have 19,635 as leasable area. And the reason why this is important is because there was in the back side, if you go back to page 5, there's like an old shed area that's in existence that we're not adding to value for that. So that's the older portions of the building that was built in 1941. I don't know how bad those conditions are, and I'm not too sure if Mr. Neufield's brief, those pictures are included in the presentation. So on page 7, I show a good picture of the newer building, and this portion here is the portion with the 22 feet ceiling heights. And I'm assuming, and then we work out the income workups. So what we have here is that you see the original value that we have here, and I'm just going to walk through my recommended value for this property here. So we have 16,895 square feet at $6.77. And then we have the 2,740 at $3 a square foot. Using, am I going too fast?
No.
4% vacancy, shortfall 385, other at 3%, to come up with a net operating income of 111,141, utilizing a cap rate of 6.85%. We come up with a value of 1,622,000. Looking at my rent comparables, what we've done here is I've tried to take buildings of similar sizes and similar years built because of the nature of the building here. You know, you have an older portion, then you got a building that was built in 1991. So I have a series of rents here showing from $6.50 to $11.35. Areas are all within close range to the subject property, and the sizes are within the range. The wall heights are between 16 and 26. The one with the 26 wall ceiling height is a newer building, and the rent is to $11.35, so it's twice as much, but we're not asking for twice as much. Our model rent is $6.77. And there are the details of the property there. On the top of page 10, there is there's a picture of the property. And what's interesting is right beside the subject property, I just need to do the math here, but there's a right beside it. So I got a 15,969 times 12 divided by 22,740. We got a rental rate there of $8.42 for a similar property. So not being in by comparable, but showing a comparable rent that's in the area, which is one of the reasons why I feel our $6.77 is quite fair. On page 11, I got some macro information here with regards to the property, because this property is in the northeast quadrant. So the vacancy rate here is 3.4%. That's off from the Capital Commercial Real Estate Group, which is lower than what the agent has presented. Some average rents here of $883, showing the CAM cost at $426, and just showing how the general trends are within the entire city. The market vacancy is at 4.5%. And it shows, like near the bottom of page 11, like the middle circle, that average asking rents have grown up 24% since 2016 to 2020. On page 12, we got some more generic information with regards to the subject property, just showing how industrial availability remained flat for the third quarter. It's showing vacancy at 3.9%, and it's just showing how it's showing the percentage of available space for sublease, however, has started to rise. It says warehousing logistics continues to lead leasing demand in Winnipeg, and just some general trends with regards to where the rents are. On page 13 is the cap rate. On page 14, 15, and 6 to 21 shows the income and expense mailer information. And page 20 of my brief shows what I'd highlighted earlier on. Thank you very much, and that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Newfield, the questions of the assessor?
Yes. So the rent, did you take a look at the rented premises on the subject property? And that's, you have it listed on page 3.
Well, they're only reporting. So when I looked at that information, it says part of it's owner occupied and part of it's leased out. And right. The part that we have a market rent on is roughly maybe 35-40% of the total space. And the semi-gross rent there is $12.63.
No, I'm just asking if you looked at your page 3 and did any sort of attempt to calculate any sort of a rent there.
Well, using our parameters, if we use 1260, let me finish, please. Using our parameters, if we go 1263 minus 3.85, we're coming with a net rent of $878.
Okay, but your parameters don't include maintenance costs and insurance, management. So none of that's recovered, right? So do you have any idea?
Well, the point is, on the income expense mailer, when it's a triple net lease, it includes property taxes, insurance, management, marketing, hydro, water, HVAC, snow removal, maintenance, and cleaning. So I'm fully acknowledging this is a semi-gross lease, and using those factors, I'm coming up with a market rent of $878.
On the, those particular costs on page 2. That they're saying $89,000 and $13, correct? Our costs?
That's what they're claiming, yes.
Okay. So you do have the costs, and you may or may not be aware of how they're prorated on the building, but did you at least attempt to do a mathematical calculation?
No, because with some mailers that we notice there's a lot of inconsistency with mailers that are filled out in this manner. So in general terms, you know, we're reporting on the actual portion that's leased out at 878, and we're using 677. So, you know, because there's too many inconsistencies with the mailers that are filled in like this, we don't. It's hard to do that calculation.
And do you know on the your site sketch where that which building that tenant occupies?
No, like I said, I've never inspected this building.
So on page, I'm looking at page 5, there the sections of the building. Well, then just moving to page 5, then did you have the ceiling heights on the different parts of the building?
We have the ceiling heights between 11 and 22 feet. And like I've stated for the second time, I've never inspected this building, so I'm not aware of it.
All right. No, I'm just wondering if you knew what part of the building. Okay. But you do acknowledge that there's a vast difference in the quality of the building from one section to the other, I take it.
I've never inspected it, so I can't comment on the quality of the finish inside the building. I
picture,
can acknowledge that there are different roof lines that have been built at different times.
Where did the picture come from on page 7 then?
On page 7? That's probably one of your briefs.
Oh, okay. I didn't get credit for it. You should put a little credit. Okay.
Oh, Mr. You know, once it becomes a public document, I don't think we have to give credits out to it. I don't believe so, but you have more expertise in legal matters than I do.
You mentioned the site next door, and I'm looking at that building. So you're set. You call that a similar building? Have you inspected that building?
What we've done with that property next door, it's in the same area. I've never inspected it, but the point is that rent, which is a net rent, which is significantly higher than what the rent that you are seeking for today on this property. So I just did it as a general guideline. I've never inspected the subject property.
On your page 10,
Yes.
I note that there are no recoveries. So how can you have a net lease when there's no recoveries?
Well, there's an inconsistency in mailers, but it also says that it's a net lease on the document. So
there's no recoveries. How could it be net?
Well, I didn't include it in my brief here right now, but sometimes there are situations whereby, because this is like as a general guideline, but the point is there's 2 points to be made here, right? On the first page of the mailer, there may be recoveries that are documented, but on the second page with regards to inconsistencies is that sometimes these mailers aren't done perfectly and they're claiming it's a net lease. So I'm trusting the people in power, the accountants in power. If they don't know what a net lease is, then I'm not sure. But let me finish here. So the point is they've documented it's a net lease. So I'm under the assumption that it's a net lease.
Okay, but but my question was simple. There are no recoveries. So wouldn't that cause you to want some better verification on this?
As you know, Mr. Newfield, not all the mailers are done 100% correct all the time.
What did you say? They're not done?
They're not 100% accurate all the time, Mr. Newfield.
But you do have a second page from this, a statement, don't you?
You know what? I didn't include that because the bottom line, this is a general guideline for what we're offering here. And so I am showing, so let's say hypothetically speaking here, Mr. Newfield, at the end of the day, if there are recoveries that need to be documented here, our average shortfall rate's $385. You're still looking at an $8-9 rent for a similar type of building here. So regardless of your questions, Mr. Newfield, I don't feel that the model rent that we're using here is unrealistic.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify this. You're mixing now the model with actuals, correct?
No, what I'm doing here is we have a model generated rent. I provided comparables that are provided to us from the many income and expense mailers that come to us every 2 years or every 3 years, depending upon the cycle. And here is an example of a comparable property on the same street that they've documented here as being a net lease. And I'm showing that for information here. I think I've answered all the questions that need to be answered for this property.
I found this a bit non-responsive, I'm sorry. On page 11, what part of the city did you call this?
The northeast part of the city of Winnipeg or Transcona.
Northeast. Now, the picture there that shows the north perimeter, Lagimodier as the border. Is that correct?
What page are you referring to?
The same page, page 11.
We were looking at page 10. So they call that northeast, yeah. So they call there's east and northeast. I'm pretty sure I said northeast.
Yeah, you said northeast. No, but my question was, what's the border on there?
Well, borders can be very generic. What they're showing here is they're showing Lagimodier. They're showing, based on my guess, they're showing Lagimodier, McLeod. I'm assuming lost it here all of a sudden. I'm assuming Gun Road to the perimeter.
And Gun Road is in Springfield, is it not?
It's on the border. Once it's the border between one and the next.
But are you not showing us properties in Springfield?
Pardon me?
Are you not? Does not that northeast quadrant include parts of Springfield?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay, that's just clarifying that. So their northeast quadrant is partially the city of Winnipeg, partially the arm of Springfield then, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And do you think that's a fair comparison?
Well, I have a variety. I think the information that I've provided here provides a variety of rents and a variety of it. It's like, if we talk about fair comparisons, they're showing $8.83. I am not using $8.33. I am showing $6.77, and you are showing $5.50. So I think that answers the question.
What is the zoning in that arm of Springfield? Do you know what it is?
Oh, based on the tenants that are located there, that would be industrial, similar to the subject property, which is zoned M2.
Well, does the city of Winnipeg M2 allow auto wrecking and salvage plants? That's an M3 use, isn't it?
Mr. I'm gonna stop right there, okay? So can we concentrate in regards to what we have in front of us? Mr. Neufeld, you're questioning the presentation by the assessor.
Well, that's correct, and I'm just trying to elicit.
I'm not an expert on the zoning requirements of the Springfield, the arm of Springfield, so I won't be able to answer any questions with regards to that.
Okay. And the capitalization rate, page 8. What was this all generated by the model?
It was generated by the model, but it's based on all the income and expense mailers and the sales verification process that we've gone through to create the model. Yes.
It's a model. Okay. Now, when you changed part of this to an inferior usage, shouldn't the capitalization rate have changed?
Change it to an inferior usage.
Yeah, but you said you had a certain amount that's unheated space. Would you not think that should also impact the cap rate?
That's reflected in the market rent that I'm using.
But you didn't adjust the cap rate though then?
No, I did not.
Okay. And how many industrial investment sales occurred in the 2 years preceding the reference date of April 1st, 21?
Ooh, I would say, based on our cap rate, we probably have at least 20 to 25.
That you believe were investment sales?
Well, not investment sales that we did our cap rate study on.
Okay, but I'm asked about the number of investment
I
sales.
can't answer that question.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that during those 2 years there was a scarcity of sales?
Well, it's sort of funny because as you're asking me these questions about the investment sales, we've been told by that the agents that we're not supposed to use industrial REIT sales. So I'm not too sure what sales we could use on, because on one front we're questioning, you're asking about using industrial sales, but then if it's a REIT sale, we're not supposed to use it. So
that wasn't what I was asking. I was just.
Okay, gentlemen, let's just deal with the facts of the matter here, if you don't mind.
so
Okay, I'm not really, again,
to
I'm
answer
fine.
your question, okay, sorry. So I have just to summarize, I don't know how many were industrial investment sales that we used for the generator model.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden?
Just to clarify, I think when you did your presentation, you talked about a 4% vacancy rate, but your workup says a 3%. So I'm assuming that's what it is, 3%.
No, what I talked about, I think just in my workup that I provided here. Yeah, you know what? I'm not too sure why I did 4%, but that's and our model. Let me double check here.
I think you used 3 throughout. It's just that
Yeah, you know what? It was an error on my part, and I apologize for that.
no problem. All right. That's all my questions.
I thank you. Mr. Salian?
Yes, when I look at your income stream, which is page 8, I don't see the differentiation in the rent with respect to the 2 different rental rates when it comes to dollars per square foot. I just see leasable at 19,635 with a rental rate of $6.77. Do I have the wrong presentation?
So that's why I made the recommendation, because I've never inspected this property. Because I haven't inspected this property, I can't confirm what is, like, I'm basing my conversation and my conversations with the agent and his representative. They had told me it was 2740. So in good faith, I've used that. But when we add a building to the roll, at the time we assumed that it was all heated. So that's why there's only PID. That's why there's not a difference there. So that's why in my recommendation, which I have here, I included the 2740 at $3 a square foot.
Okay, so that's at that's 2,740 square
Feet, yeah.
Okay, and it's at $3. Okay, square foot. So, okay, so page 8 was prior to the recommendation.
Yeah, because you know, there are conversations that take place prior to the due date of submission, and we couldn't come close to agreement to what is a fair value. And so, but I felt comfortable with regards to making the recommendation at $3.
Okay, now I know you haven't inspected this property, but has anyone ever inspected this property recently?
I'm sure we probably inspected it when we added it to the roll. And I would have to double check, but I don't have access to that information here right now.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. I have no questions, Mr. Newfield, your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have inspected the property, and I'm trying to remember who came out with us to meet us there from the assessment department. I know we had someone come out, and that was to resolve the. There were some old buildings on the roll that shouldn't have been there, and plus the air of this unheated building at the back as well. And that occurred about 3-4 years ago. And no, I know it wasn't Mr. Frolik that came out with us. The building is not a good building. The front part is the 1950s construction, and the I guess if you're looking at the overhead picture of it, the original building was just trying to see the best overhead view here. I think I'm going to look at the assessor's document. He has the better overhead shot on his page 5, at the top of page 5. So the right part of it, there's an old house which isn't in use, and then there's a small office portion where on the right side, and then the south part was built in 2 sections. The older part with the peaked roof, and then a lean-to on the side. And so you can see the lean-to is got the yellow wall, and we're facing it. And that's the picture of the inside that the assessor had as well, inside the lean-to. And the newer section is about the middle of the picture. And that's where the tenant is in. So the tenant's got the superior space. The owner has just the older rundown space, and then the outer building, which we were talking about, the 2,700 feet. That's just an unheated shed. When you look at these pictures, by the way, those cars parked there are not employees' cars. They're abandoned cars. They did a lot of metal recycling on the site, and one of the things that's very difficult to see in this picture is they have a number of very large pieces of metal that they were dumped on the site, that they were stripping down and trying to salvage for the metal, and that's what's littered all over the site. There'd be large industrials from like I think one of them was from an old hydro generating station, the turbines, very difficult to remove. So that's the nature of their business, and that's what the building's all about. So on going back to my document, beginning on page 5, that's the unheated building. And the inside of the unheated building is below. You can see it's just corrugated steel with some skylights and wood frame construction. And inside here are old metal pieces of equipment that they're keeping from rusting before they get stripped down. And page 8 shows you some of these old pieces of equipment. This isn't working equipment. This is equipment waiting to be salvaged for its metal in it. Oh wait, there's a really great picture on top of page 9. That's what's inside that shed. Is all these old industrial parts being stripped. On the bottom of page 9 is the same picture the assessor had. So this is the lean-to addition I speak of, and it does have a craneway. That's for lifting it's what's called an interior. I think it's called an interior skeleton craneway. It's not hanging off the roof. It's built on the ground. It's freestanding, and this is for moving their metal recycling projects around. Page 10, I guess the tank is rather interesting. This means that the property is listed on the Manitoba environmental site because of the presence of fuel storage on the site. Going to the I just wanted to see if there's anything else physically to point out. No, so just going to the valuation, back to page 1. The sites would be pretty much, we put a rate of 550 on the whole site, but the Superior one, I'm not really going to disagree with the assessor's number on the Superior side. That's the rented side, because his number is very close to the paid rent when calculated and netted out. It's almost spot on. I mean, I hate to say it, but but anyway, but that's the good part of it.
Am I getting love from Mr. Neufeld? Wow.
Hey, that's just not welcome. That intruder there.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I apologize.
You throw me off. So again, I'm not disagreeing that the good portion should be in and around that rate, because that's what they pay. Now, the problem is the bad portion is bad. And so that would be about a $4 rent. And that's why we've put the whole thing at $550. Because it's old and it's bad, just a bad design. It's not very good utility. That's our difference. And we do have some rents on page 3. And one of the things we're doing is, you see that graph in the bottom of page 3, is we just put all our data in and then run an intercept line on the square footage just to see where it would come in at. And our intercept line was indicated a rent of $5.16. So that's a mass appraisal technique, and that's for guidance. As far as which one of these best represent the subject's rough usage, I think most all of these are far superior. I'm just trying to go through in my head to see. No, these are. There's nothing this bad in our list, because the rents we have are better working buildings, and it's just not investment quality. It'd be more comparable to older loft style rents that you might see in the downtown area. And we do have some of those on the bottom of page 4, but they are in a different location. But that's the quality that you would generally see at that rate. And you can see that those are, all of them are under $4 a foot. The vacancy rate is, we had used 6%, and I'm just looking at what we do on vacancy rate is we look at the neighborhood and then the overall vacancy rate. And I've got the Johnson report in front of me, and those numbers aren't correct. And we also put an excerpt from the Johnson report on page 11, and that's not the correct chart either, but it makes no difference. It's actually higher. You can see the one error was the St. Boniface mean. It's not St. Boniface, it's Transcona. The Transcona actual mean, and it's not single tenant, it's multi-tenant, it's 12.1%. And the city mean is 6.6%. But the problem with Transcona is that it's got a low sample size. So one building can skew all the rates off. So I think you put far more attention on the overall city rate when you have a low sample size, and that's why we use 6%. And again, that's from the Johnson report, investment inventory. 6.2 is listed. That's the single tenant rate. The multi-tenant rate is 6.6%. But I'm not making any changes here. I just wanted to report that it's not accurate. The vacancy should be a bit higher based on this. As well, we're looking at non-recoverables and reserve, which I know you've been hearing this argument for the last several years. They exist. They're real. It's all about money. It's not about somebody's perception of whether or not they occur. They always occur. You have periods of vacancy where non-recoverables are large, periods of being full where they're not large, and they're to be stabilized to a standard rate. Without that, you would see assessments go up dramatically on a bad year, and they don't. Everybody wants to stabilize, and that's fair. So that's how you stabilize. And now our own study, which is at the end of the document, shows a rate, the last page, of 9.81% of non-recoverables. And these are managed properties. And if you look at some of the same sites, you'll see exactly what I mean. There's good years, there's bad years, and you stabilize it out by having a stabilized rate. And the key here is there's two keys on this. One is the standard of this in valuation isn't whether an appraiser or an assessor says it exists. It's what the market says exists. And the market says non-recoverables exist. There's 100 right in front of you. And this is just a small sampling of properly managed sites where that we have non-recoverables. And the second takeaway is the simplest in the world. Follow the money. How much money goes back to the investor, and that defines the cap rate and the investment potential. So you can't imagine it away because you don't believe it exists, as the assessment department has done. It exists, and it impacts the markets. It's required. Then in terms of the capitalization rate, you heard me ask the assessor some questions about how many sales. The truth of the matter is there were virtually no sales in the 2 years preceding this. And the issue with that is that our government has decided that we reassess every 2 years. So that's to keep current. So that means that when you have cap rates from 2019 and prior, do they really represent market conditions in 2021? No, they don't. Because the world changed in the beginning of 2020, and investment sales just dropped off the map because of the uncertainty. There were none. So no one gets the concept of stabilization to say, well, they don't exist, let's just go back a few years. You can't stabilize that way. You can do it on a rent to a degree because the rent will still be in place for that period, but not on a cap rate. You got to have a market transaction, and there were virtually none. One of the things that Colliers nationally has done, and I've gone through this before, and I won't do this once today, is we've recognized that there's a scarcity of sales. And what we've done is, starting on page 27, is we've gone back to the original way that cap rates were calculated. This isn't a new concept. This is the first way cap rates were calculated, which was follow the interest rate spread. And that's at the bottom of page 29. Just shows the spread between bond rates, government of Canada bond yields, and 10-year mortgage rates, and the average cap rate. Very simple. That's the spread, and that's what the investor looks at to make more money than you would on a bond, and more money than you would on after your mortgage, that you have a spread as well. So the typical spread on the mortgage rates has always been 3% historically. That had tightened up a bit after 2003. So you can see the spread there is now about 2.5 points. The spread to the bond yield has always been about 4 points. And this then leads to our creation on page 30 of the concept of a Winnipeg cap rate. Now, there in industrial, we have class A and B, both the same, a low and a high, 6% to 6.75%. Now, our definitions of that are on the next page, page 31, and you can see that this does not fit the definition of a class A nor a class B. This is an inferior rate. So this is outside the range, above the range, And what we have done is on page 2 is looked at what takes it out of the range from the 6% basis and then brings it up. Now, the issue on this one is, there's an easement on it for the neighbor next door. So that's a property right issue. I don't know if this shows in the overhead. The assessor was talking about it having a great deal of land. Well, part of that land is given away by the easement to the neighbor. No, I don't see the picture of it. I'm looking at a Google Street View of it, but the approach for both sites is the one that we showed on our picture page. Okay, I have to go with the assessors over. Oh, well, here we go. Page 1. You see that the approach to the right of the red dot, and then there's a building to the north. Well, that building shares the access. So that all that land in front is under easement to the neighbor, which means it's got to be kept clear and they can't use it for their own use because the neighbor gets to use it. So that's the one issue with the land on there, that it's not as it's impacted by a title right. So not only is it have no value, but it's a negative in the market because you don't have the freedom to do with what you want on your site. The next issue has to do with, well, the closing costs in the Collier's reports, which we've always been telling you about. Location deficient. This is Day Street in Transcona. It's not St. James Street. It's or Inkster or Chevrier. It's remote, and it's not a desirable area. The other issues have to do with the building quality. It's a bunch of, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate sections of the main building, built in different years, different pieces. It's irregular shaped, it's older. Then there's the unheated part of it, and then the condition. So our estimate of a cap is worked out to 7.79, which we applied at 7.75. And that's our number. Now, I know sometimes people look and say, well, it's less than last year. Well, of course it is, because the market sucked. You do reassessments every 2 years. 2 years prior to April 1st, 21, things got worse, not better. You don't stabilize higher and ignore what happened. Values dropped. Some properties did go up, and multifamily land went up. Industrial high cube in Rosser went up. The rest of the world suffered and went down. This is something that in Winnipeg, people have a hard time understanding, because we've always seen progression or at very worst stagnancy, but we're in a negative growth, negative values on our real estate. If we lived in Calgary, we'd live and die by the price of oil. It goes up, values go up, goes down, values go down. They're used to it. We're not, but that's the message. It's impacted all of our markets. Thank you. That's my presentation.
I thank you, Mr. Frolick. Questions?
Yes, Mr. Neufeld has lots of information, but I'll just continue on with the last theme of what he said. Do you have any documentation or do you have any published reports stating that industrial values have gone down in the city of Winnipeg? Because based on what I have seen, that's not the case at all. So can you reference a document or a release or something that would show me that so I could do research on that?
Well, you can read the years of the Collier's study. I could send them all and enter them as evidence. They say that beginning in Q1 of 2020 about the decline. They all speak to it. Also, I'm not working in the abstract here. We work with people every day. Our clients have vacancies. Buildings are hard to sell. I apologize. I said that there was only one two sectors that showed an increase. There was another increase in value, and that was the migration from downtown and the search for suburban office. That actually went up because the people just wanted out of the office buildings. But we work with this. I mean, you're saying, is there a document? There's my whole life here, all the work we do, and then the dozens of people who work on our building and put out those reports.
Okay.
You've got them all. They said.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, okay, so before you go any further, so if there was a drop in value, wouldn't there be a huge increase in cap rates?
There were no
Okay.
caps. There were
What's
no
that?
caps because there were no sales.
Okay, but the point is, on page 30 of your brief, the cap rates haven't changed at all. And if you're indicating that there's a drop in value, that would indicate to me that the cap rates have increased significantly.
No, because it wasn't cap rate driven. It was vacancy and rent driven.
But on my presentation, it said that rents were going up by 24% from 2016 to 2020.
In Springfield?
No, in the city of Winnipeg.
Well, then you should get Rennie and Trevor, who ran that report, and get them in there to testify.
Okay.
It's not the case.
Well, anyways, with that being said, just okay, Mr.
What happened on the cap rate side is that, I'm answering your question here, is that you saw that there was a move from following the sales, which didn't exist, to following the bank rate. So the weird thing that happened during COVID is they kept the bank rate down until about June or July of 21. And as a result, the hypothetical cap rates remain stabilized. That was a government-induced measure to stabilize markets, but that doesn't mean sales happened.
I got a question for you. So for the panel members and for Mr. Neufeld, I just want to make sure that I understand what's been presented by Mr. Neufeld here. So on page 6 of my document, I'm showing the main square foot area is 19,775, which is very close to what we're using for leasable area. What portion of this building's unheated?
That shack at the back.
Okay, but we're not including that shack in the back for valuation purposes.
Oh, then it's the top of 4.
The top of 4? Okay.
Sorry, page 4. Your page 4.
On my brief or your brief?
Your brief.
Okay.
You see where your red dot is? There's that section between it's don't know how to describe it. It's the north part of the south section.
Okay, the north part of the south section. Okay, that is confusing. So with the red dot, is it north or south of the red dot?
It's right under the red dot.
Okay, no problem. So there's 2,700 square feet there of unheated space there.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Because you talked about, you know, the unheated space on page 5 and 6 quite a bit, and your pictures on page 7, but we're not even including that in our valuation.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure why you're talking about it if it's not included in the valuation.
Yeah. Well, you know, I did the first workup on this, right? And I happen to have this open on Google Earth, and I'm just trying to see what it, just make sure we're talking about the same thing. No, you know what, your building, I'm just got the outline here, and the building, that the main U-shaped, L-shaped building is I think I've got about 17,000 feet. I'm just trying to, I gotta take this piece out here. Sorry. No, I'm showing the main building as being about 17,200 feet.
Oh, On what I had, is I measured it out to be 19,000. I think I'm pretty close to the footprint of the building on page 6. Is there any second floor space in the building, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, there's a small portion on the near where the front is. It's I'm just trying to see if I can pinpoint exactly. I've been up there, so I think there's a little mezzanine space up there. So that might have been the part that got taken off. So I didn't do this work up.
Okay, no problem. I understand completely. I'm asking the questions, Mr. Neufeld, so I understand better.
Yeah, I don't think that overall that we're running a discrepancy here. I think what we're looking at here is I'm seeing a plan area of the actual rentable about 17.2, and that's a Google Earth measure. So I might be getting eaves in there.
Yep. Okay.
And so that corresponds to the 16,895, and then the shack at the back I know is 2740 because I measured that.
Yeah.
And we're not disputing it has value. It offers shelter from the rain.
Okay. I'm just asking the question. Okay, so you talked about the easement per se. So underneath the main portion of the building here, isn't there any value for surplus land to the building to the west of the L-shaped property? Because there's a lot of potential for development there from what I see.
Well, I think one of the problems with it, and you can refer to your own document on page 4, is it abuts on the back of the Transcona Bioreserve. So there's going to be some limitations there on the use that they like to put to it, which is they'd love to store scrap metal there. They don't have that opportunity. I don't see. Just looking at your plot outline here. Yeah, on your page 4.
Gentlemen, there's no value for excess land, so you can have a general discussion, but
The only reason I said that, Mr. Merritt, or I asked that question to that, is there are situations at the municipal boards where there's value added or values taken to the surplus lands to affect cap rates. So that's why I asked that question. I have no other questions.
Property, there's no, so let's not discuss it because there's no value, mentioned. There might be excess land. There is, according to the ratio. Okay.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Ms. McFadden.
Do you know approximately, Mr. Neufeld, how much of the building is the old part of the building that you would assign the $4 rent to, and how much of the building is the new building that you are agreeing with the assessor at the $677?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can. I have the measurements sitting right here in front of me, and I'm just going to. I'm showing about 6,400 feet, and that's a very rough measurement just from Google Earth. And the portion I'm this newer portion is the western part, and it does jut into the old section for the rentable area, and that's why you're getting the total. The 6,400 is the new part, but the tenant rents 70. What do they have down here? 70. I'm just looking at their number here. 7184. So the difference of the extra 700 square feet is part that extends into the older portion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Solano,
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
either party wants summation?
I don't, if Mr. Neufeld does not.
Mr. Neufeld?
You can't do a conditional on me.
I could always do a conditional one on you, Mr. Neufeld.
You're first. You're not saying anything. No, I think it's fairly obvious we have a very rundown building, and we half agree with the assessor. We don't agree in the other half. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to 550 Messier. Mr. Frolick, whenever you're ready.
Yep. File number is 223405. The assessed value is 060934 62160. The assessed value for 2023 is $3,284,000. The buildings were built between 1976 and 2013 with a wall height between 11 and 40 feet. We have a land area of 616,209 square feet. Leasable area is 54,430, and land to building ratio is higher than the standard of 4:1 at 11.84. In a perfect world, there's been a lot of information gone back and forth. I wanted to do an inspection of this, but due to the current workload, that was impossible. So I'm not able to put forth a recommendation at this time. Property owner has been compliant with regards to filling out income and expense mailer information. Property is located in the St. Boniface Industrial Park on the top of page 3. On page 2, there's a picture of the subject property. And then on the bottom of page 3 just shows you the general layout of the building. On page 3. On page 4, what we have here is we have the gross potential rent of $291,554. Utilizing 54,430 square feet. The blended rate would be 291,554 divided by 54430 would be $5.35. Utilizing a 4% vacancy, 3% expenses, 385 for shortfall, we come up with 263,113. Utilizing a cap rate of 8.1%, we come up with a net income of $3,248,000. What we have here is we just have a series of leasable properties across the city of Winnipeg. They're built between 1963 and 1970, so the comparables are all older than the subject property in terms of the age, because you got a significant portion that's 2013. And then the rents that we have range from $5 to $6.25. There's our cap rate information on page 6 and 7. And we do show that this property is owner occupied. Thank you very much. And that concludes my presentation.
I thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. Do you have an indication of how much of the building is heated when unheated?
You know, that's why I wanted to do an inspection of this property, because I don't know exactly. Okay. So that's why.
So you're honest. There's some uncertainty.
Which is why I want to do an inspection ahead of time, but it's just, you know, the workload wouldn't allow it.
Sure. And this mezzanine, did you look at the past inspections that were done in the mezzanine? I know we had an assessor out there at one time.
I do have some file notes on here. Let me just see if I can get them, or I didn't. So I know it was merged. You know what? Unfortunately, I would have to double check, but the ones that I printed up, you know what happened, Mr. Neufeld? Unfortunately, because this property was merged and there was a replot. So at one point there were 2 different roll numbers, and now that's just the one roll number. And now I don't have access to those notes.
Okay. No, that's fine. And you did mention that you'd like to inspect it, and you're right, it was just next to impossible to get this done. So and I'm just gonna enter a bit of information as rebuttal then, and just a picture of the mezzanine. You haven't seen the mezzanine then either?
Yeah, no, sorry, you didn't say that
Okay.
to me now?
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. And the page 4 is all model generated?
Yep.
Okay. The rents that you have, page 5, can we assume that those are all heated space?
Yeah, we can assume that.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
I thank you. Ms. McFadden.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Kent, do you have any questions of the assessor?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Newfield, your presentation, and you said you had rebuttal, but do your presentation, then we'll deal with your rebuttal.
Sure, and I'll work it in. It's very simple, and I think you've already heard it already. Looking at the site, just a bit of a description of the site, and again, I think I'm going to refer to the assessor's overhead picture. It's a bit easier to describe. And his is on page 3 of his report. So we're looking at the property from the west, and the original building is the a more brownish building on the left side. In this picture, there's a 550 on it. And in this building, the front part where there's the offices and there's 2 levels of windows there, that's heated. The rest of the building is unheated. They recycle metal. The doors are open all winter long. And you can see there's a rail car in their yard and the scrapyard full of metals, all sorted by metal type at different parts in the yard. They built an addition, the rear, and it's a higher ceiling addition, and it's a metal sorting machine is inside there. And the building doesn't have to be heated, and the heat is rarely on, but it was by code built with heat. So it has heaters, but again, the doors are open all winter long, and they don't heat it, but it does have the potential. The section of land, I think the assessor was talking about a replot on his picture, and I think ours is a bit clearer on the replot, the issue behind it, on our page 1. The picture you're looking at there, the red dot is the same building. It's on the old section, and then to the bottom of that is the new section. And there's a cutout or a part of the property that's been subdivided, and that's not on this roll, but it is part of the complex. And that's an unheated building, but it's a separate roll, but it is part of the economic unit. So all through this area, they have different areas. Now, the other section actually used to be for Freon storage. Always wonderful things, and there's battery storage on the site. It's anything you can recycle. Focused on metals is what they handle there. Obviously, it's on the list for environmental, but of course. Now, what we have looked at on the rent on these is the new section, which you can see it's got overhead. It's got the units on the rooftop for heating. We put a rent of $6. It's high cube space. It's relatively new, and it's good utility, good ceiling height. And the old section that's unheated, $3. And then the office itself at $5. It's a very, very minimal office. We put nothing on the mezzanine, and that's in the rebuttal. It's an open mezzanine, meaning it is not rentable. It's just the part on top of the office. And the concept on the vacancy, it's the same thing. This case, it is actually in St. Boniface. So the 6% is what the Johnson report has for St. Boniface. And the same issue with non-recoverables, they exist, they're real. Shortfall, what's interesting, I want to be as honest as possible, is if you don't heat a building, your shortfall should be lower. And that's why instead of the city's at 385, yes, 385, but you're not heating, so we put it at $3, which is a lower number indicating a higher value. We're treating this as it really is, not what it hypothetically is. The cap rate, well, the city's at 8.1 and we're at 8.0, so no comment. We're really close this time. I think we're on the same wavelength. I think our big difference here is the non-recoverables, of course, and then the rentable area, and then the rent attributed to the unheated portions. We would be at the same number as them on a blended value for the heated space. Theirs is 539, and ours would be actually a bit higher than that on a blended rate for our heated. But the $3 for the unheated is the issue. Now, when I say it's unheated, people would say, well, you just turn the heater on. No, you don't turn the heater back on. They're no function anymore, and the building is corroded on the inside from the cycles of moisture. What happens in an unheated building, especially on the steel parts, is that you have a warm day and the hot warm air goes inside, it cools down at night, condenses and corrodes. Repeat the cycle 365 days a year, and your building becomes corroded and is no longer capable of it is what it is. It's in inferior condition, but for their business, that's fine. So that's our number. It's virtually the same as the year before. This building, recycling is not as impacted by market changes as most industries, but it also doesn't have the same growth potential. It's not going anywhere. There won't be some smart developer coming along and saying, oh, you got 14 acres of land, let's see what we can do on it, because they're not going to do anything with it. It's obviously contaminated and it's not worth the cleanup. So that's why the value will remain constant. That's my presentation, and if you have the pictures, you'll see it's just the mezzanine that I was showing you.
So can I start my questioning?
Not yet. So, Mr. Newfield, basically, you're fairly close in regards to cap rate, so it's just a matter of the rental rate.
Predominantly the rental rate, yes.
And that's your presentation?
Yes.
Mr. Frolick, questions of Mr. Newfield?
Yeah, for sure. With regards to in our system here, Mr. Newfield, does the owner have care and control of this 2,400 square feet?
What do you mean care and control?
Well, because I noticed for BA we have it vacate. We have it as vacate. We haven't included it for BA. So I just want to clarify that.
Oh, yeah, no, it's all his space. That's what I was remembering. The assessment, we worked on it last time. We took it off as rentable space. It's open mezz. It's not rentable area.
Well, but isn't it storage space? Because it looks like storage space to me on the pictures.
No, it can't bear weight. It's on top of an office.
Well,
you want storage space, you'd like to put some loading on there, not your spare tires.
Well, but your picture has spare tires in it.
That's what I just said that. You have spare tires, how much do they weigh?
But couldn't you store office materials? Would this not have some value to the overall building of the property?
this business recycles metal. It would have value for them if it had the loading capability to hold metal up there. It does not. Therefore, it's useless. They're not going to go put a sign up. I'm renting a light storage space.
No, my question is that could they not potentially put an office in this mezz space, the second floor space?
Imagine if they wanted to spend the money and redevelop it, and then they take out a permit, you could go and reassess it and put it back on the roll.
Okay, I'm asking the question.
You can't assess for something that doesn't exist on potential.
But you sent pictures of it, so to me, it sort of does. Okay, so the bottom of page 2, is this the same second floor space?
Bottom of my page 2.
And your rebuttal.
Oh, yeah, that's the angle from, no, I'm looking into the unheated space from there. So I'm standing on the stairwell that went up there, and then there's a gate, a little fence there, and that's around the mezzanine, and I'm looking down. So the box right in front of me is actually on the ground floor.
Okay, no problem.
It's on top of, you see those cable spools there? It's on top of one of them.
Okay, I'm just clarifying it because you brought it towards us, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So on the new building there, is that an HVAC on top of that, or is that
no? That's
just vents.
Yeah. That's I mentioned it does have heating. I could send you the inside pictures, but that's not rebuttal because it's not under dispute. And I'd be glad to. I wish they had been included, but it is a heated building.
Okay.
But they generally don't run the heating because the caterpillars are going in and out with metal, and the doors stay open.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You use magnet separation. You don't need heating for that.
And which part is the $3 rent on our page 3? Just to clarify again.
That's the section between the office and the new section.
Okay, thank you. It's just okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden?
I have no question. Thank you.
Kat, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Newfield, we're going to deal with your rebuttal.
Sure, and I just sent the 2 pictures in, and they just show the mezzanine that's in dispute. That the assessment is on the assessment roll, and you can see it's the top of the office, and incidentally, it's open to the unheated space, so it's not heated either.
All right. Mr. Follick, questions in regards to rebuttal?
No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
McFadden?
So just to be clear, the 2 pictures you sent us, the second picture isn't the mezzanine, the first picture is the mezzanine, is that correct?
No, well, the second picture is me standing on the mezzanine looking down on the unheated section of the building. So I was up there, and I was just it's on top of it, but you can barely see on the right side. You can see that little plastic fence and a portion of it.
Okay, thank you.
But that's to show you that it's open to
Okay.
the unheated.
Either party wants summary?
Nope, I am fine with no summary.
Mr. Newfield?
No, we're good, thanks.
All right, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. So we'll reconvene at about 10:27. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the hearing back to order, and we will deal with 200 Haggart Avenue. Mr. Frolick, whenever you're ready, you can take us to that property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. File number is 221989. Roll number is 14098771600. The assessed value that we have for 2023 is $2,421,000. One building premise built in 2001, 24 feet, M2 zoning, Land area is 177,403. Leasable area 16,040. And this building also has a large land to building ratio. Property owner has been compliant with regards to completing their income and expense mailers. And there was a sale for this property on April 4th, 2012 for $1,602,000. So that's pretty significant. What I've done here on the past, based on previous hearings that have taken place, there's been some issues with regards to easements and that affect the potential. The agent has argued that it has affected the development of the property. So what I did is, because I'm not an expert in this, I contacted my a colleague at PP&D, and I pulled the titles for this, and then subsequently I have a bit more information on this matter. So on page 3, I have the status of title, talking about who the registered business owner is, the caveat that takes place, and that there's an easement agreement here. Then on page 4, it just talks about the easement agreement with regards to the caveat with Manitoba Hydro and MTS Communications, talks about it. And then also on if you go on the bottom towards 2/3 of the way down on page 4, it actually shows the land of the open market transaction between Precision Metalcraft and MacDon at $1,602,000. And with regards to the first easement agreement, it's my understanding it's a zoning agreement which restricts the certain uses and likely has little impact on the overall value of the property. This is based on my contact from PP&D. And what he's provided me here is I actually have the full documentation of it. I don't have it here, but it talks about the easement agreement with regard to with the city of Winnipeg on page 5. On page 6 is the second part of the easement agreement. Or page 6, and it says this was required for a vehicle turnaround and could likely be discharged at some point because Tigard is now a road that goes through. These caveats do not restrict the land use. And here's some more details out on page 6. On page 7 is the pictures of the subject property. So as you can see, this property, as compared to the other two that we've looked at today, it's a near finish on the outside, built in 2001. It's located in the Inkster Industrial Park, which is in the northwest quadrant of the city of Winnipeg. Then on page 8, what we have here is we have a couple pictures just showing where it's located at, like how the land uses. There's a long driveway, parcels in the middle of the property, and then subsequently where there's future development that could, what I'm guessing is that could probably take place to the south of the subject property. Another picture on page 9. And what we have for a rental rate. So we have 16,040 square footage, utilizing $7.78. 4% vacancy loss, 3% expenses. Net operating income of $113,735, and we got a cap rate of 5.1%. That seems really low. But the reason why is that because the property, it is a smaller property and it's newer built, so it takes advantages of the technology that has taken place in the 21st century, as opposed to a building built in the 1960s. What we also have here is so we have the value of $2,230,000. We have additional land value of $191,000 to come up with the $2,420,000. Looking at some rent comparables. Just in the area, so it's a general range. On the first portion, we're showing a range between 9,600 and 23,000. Wall heights between 18 and 24. All younger than the subject property, and these rents are between $755 and $967. Almost all of them are in the northwest quadrant. And then we got some other nearby comparables that are super close to the subject property. And these are on Meridian Discovery, like essentially within a kilometer of the subject property. And these are larger properties. They are all newer than the subject property, but the rents are higher, right? So the rents are like, $9, $12 north of $9, and we're using $778. So you can see the difference of this because of the fact that what ends up taking place is that it's a bit older. And so when you're looking at some of these properties here, they do have higher ceiling heights and higher rents, and they are newer. So I feel comfortable with the 778 that we're using for the model. What we've done here is I just got some comparable land sales that we've used in the past, showing a range between on the first portion between $6 and $8. And I actually need to double check on this for 1 sec, because our land usage is actually really, really not very high. Just bear with me here. So when we looked at our income approach to value, we're just over probably $1.25 a square foot for the land that we're using here, because we have the land value, the total adjustments of 191, and we have the area of excess land to be 113,243. And so the first portion on the top of page 12 just shows a range, that are all north of $6. And then subsequently on the second part on page 12, we have land sales of between 464 and 868 that have taken place. Cap rate study has been shown as before, and the property owner states that it is owner occupied property and there are no rents in place. Thank you for your time. I am open to questions now.
Thank you. Mr. Nuptill?
Yes, starting with your comments on the sale, what do you know about the sale?
Just bear with me here for 1 sec, because I did have notes here on it. Collier sold as vacant possession. They actually reported the sale for $2 million, but the difference is presumed to be as equipment. It included some sophisticated equipment for it. So the sale was worth $2 million, but after the adjustments, or what was on land titles, it worked out to be $1.2 million or $1,602,000.
I'm sorry. So how did land titles report it?
Well, on my page 3,
yeah,
on the status of title, or page 4, it says we have it as an open market transaction for $1,602,000.
Okay, but so there's no difference between the consideration and the sworn value there, is there?
Well, the point is, the information that we had here is the actual reported sale was at $2 million, but we took approximately $400,000 away for the chattels of the power coat equipment line.
What? Sorry, are you saying that the $1,602,000 is the assessment department's number?
No, maybe if you look on page 4 of my brief, Mr. Neufeld, transfer of land on subsection number 9, it was Precision Metalcraft Incorporated, sold to your client at MacDon Industries. Consideration is $1,602,000.
Right, and so this number of 400,000, where does this where does the 2 million come from?
Oh, this is what we have in our file notes from the April 12th sale.
Oh, your file notes, okay.
You asked me your question was, what did I know about the sale? And I tried to answer it.
But it doesn't say, I mean, wouldn't you, what you're talking about there, wouldn't you expect it then to say consideration 2 million, sworn value 1.6? Shouldn't that be the way it's reported if an adjustment's made for equipment?
Well, you know what? I'm not an expert in land titles, so I can't really answer that question. I can only answer the question of what we have in our file notes here.
Okay. You didn't talk to anyone associated with the sale then?
No.
MacDon, Mercury Metal?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you brought up the issue of the caveat. So just I'm looking at this. The first, and it's page 5. It's an easement agreement. Is there a registration number on the easement agreement?
You know what? I'm not an expert on this. what I did, I followed up with PP&D in general terms, and this is the information that they provided me. So any particular question with regards to the easement agreement, I won't be able to answer it because I'm not an expert in this
Okay,
matter.
that's fine. I'm just looking at the numbers here. So this easement agreement is for the temporary turnaround then, correct?
Yeah, one of them's for the temporary turnaround, yes.
And then you have a caveat, and that's the one that ends in 203. Or say that's the temporary turnaround one, right?
Yeah,
Or
are they
one
number 2 is for the turnaround, yes.
Are they one and the same, or do you know if the, see, it says temporary traffic turnaround on page 5, and then when I go look at the actual caveat on the next page, it is also temporary traffic turnaround. Is it, these are likely one and the same, are they not?
I'm assuming so, but I'm not an expert in this matter.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clear that up. Did you, any chance, take a look at the space between the edge of the building and the edge of the property line?
Just based on my pictures, there doesn't seem to be a lot of space.
No measurement or anything like that? Did you by any chance do a measurement?
I did not inspect this property, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay. Oh, all right. No, that's fine. I just want to clarify this. And do you know what sort of business is conducted in the building?
Well, well, just based on the file.
Well, you said the powder coating, right?
And it's MacDon, so I know it's one of your clients, you know. So MacDon makes farm equipment. So what I'm assuming is they probably make component parts for farm machinery. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, but you said earlier, I think we're both agreeing on this. You had said earlier there's powder coating equipment, so it's a powder coating operation?
Yes.
Okay. And no inspection done on this. Do you know that if there's any office finish in the subject?
You know, in fairness, I think there's probably very limited office finish there. I think it's mostly just for manufacturing.
Okay, and these comparables that you have, you've selected these on page 11. Are any of these powder coating or similar styles of operations to your knowledge?
No, I don't think. You know what? When I look at them, they're more, they're more warehousing.
Yeah. Okay.
But the point is, like, in general terms, a building's a building, right? So if we're looking at some of the newer comparables that I've had, significant portions of them are warehousing space, right?
On your page, sorry, I'm just, what was your rate that ended up being used on the land per square foot?
Oh, it just worked out to just go 113, 243, 113, 243. We have 191, 123 divided by 113, 243. $1.68 a square foot, or $1.69 a square foot.
$1.69 a square. Okay. I just didn't see the workup anywhere on the amount of land.
Well, and how I did that calculation, Mr. Neufeld, is so what I did is I took the, roughly speaking, I took the 177 and I subtracted 64,000.
So the 64,000 square feet of land is you're deeming
would be the 4-to-1 ratio.
Oh, so it's the land over and above that.
Yeah, everything above the 4-to-1 ratio.
Above 4-to-1. Okay. All right. Do you and I think you may have already answered this, but you don't have an understanding of the history of this project? Yeah, I think you did say that.
I just essentially what I've quoted you off of our notes.
Okay, and now you're talking about the cap rate. You remarked it was a little low, and
people will look at this cap rate and say, "Wow, that seems really, really low," right? But the point is, it's a newer property, and it's small. It's a smaller area, so those are two contributing factors for that.
think earlier today you talked about the concept of excess land and cap rates.
Yep.
And you were getting to a point, I think I know where you're going, but in this case, you've already accounted for excess land, so wouldn't the cap rate have to be more comparable at a higher rate? Because
No, because actually, like, I think we've undervalued the land for this portion of this property, and I think it should be a lot higher than the $1.70 or the $1.69 that I've quoted. So I don't believe any adjustments required for that.
Okay, but in principle, is that not what you were getting at discussing earlier? Is that the concept of excess land plays into cap rates in some way?
Well, as you know, there's a lot of gray areas in our profession. There's always not one answer for one situation or scenario. And so I believe the line of questioning is not applicable in this situation.
And do you know where the underground services are located?
I do not.
Okay.
And I don't think I've seen them in your brief. Are they located in your brief? Because if they are, I missed it.
No, I'm just wondering if you knew, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, so those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden.
So looking at your picture on page 8 of the land, what part of this land would you be seeing as being the additional land having value that could be redeveloped?
I think if they want to do an expansion to the southwestern side, all the way straight through, right? So they could actually move that, not knowing where the hydro lines are. But the point is, I think there's value towards expanding if they wanted to onto the southwest corner of the building.
So there's value to the land for them for expansion, not necessarily as a sale of excess land.
Oh, no, because there's the difference between excess land and surplus land, right? So sorry. Yeah, this is clearly, I apologize. This is clearly surplus land, which is why it's valued so low compared to what an excess land sale would be, which is what I have here. So I clarified that. Sorry.
Okay, because there is really no access to.
No, you're 100% late.
Okay, thank you. That's all my
I
question.
apologize for that.
Mr. Seelane?
Yes, question, is this property north of Inkster?
Yes, it is. It is north of Inkster.
Okay. When you came up with the cap rate of 5.1%, can you show us where it is in your chart on page 15?
Yeah, so it's not located on our chart here, but how we would look at it is this way, right? So in terms of, this is a single tenanted property, right? And the 20th to 80th percentile is between 5.55 and 7.45%, right? So in our chart, it's outside of it's a part of the first 20th percent, not the 20th percent. So what ends up happening, it's built in the 21st century, it's very small size. And so with that being said, that was our methodology with regards to doing that.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. I have no questions. Mr. Nookfield, your presentation.
Thank you. The subject property was one of the first buildings built in the Inksbrook industrial area. It was, I think, the second one built. The first one was Fort Garry Industries. The whole concept took off in 1996. And why I'm speaking to it, because this is the first job I ever did in real estate, was on the Inksbrook development. So Klaus Roessler started this off. He had 3 sections of land. This is phase 1. And Fort Garry was the first user. And in the beginning, Fort Garry, and they were immediately south of the subject, had temporary services from across Inkster while they were bringing in the main line down where Haggard is now. So that main line came from King Edward, and then came and to service Fort Garry came down the middle of the property line between the subject and the lot next door. Those were the main services are now. This initial lot that was developed had to be the subject lot. They were dealing with the retention pond. And what happened is that they made a number of lots around the retention pond that were irregular. And the problem with the irregular lots is you look at the subject, it's a pie. So the front part, they needed to site their building exactly where it is for a very specific reason. If you measure the northeast corner of the building to the lot line, it's 100 feet. They had to push the building back that far, so they got their 100-foot separation. The 100-foot separation is not on the caveats that the assessor brought up. I believe it's on the caveat I have mentioned on page 7, which is 216-6490. This came about in the whole Inksbrook development because if you go back to my picture on page 1, the land immediately east of the subject property is a farm with a residence. As such, the planners insisted on 100-foot setbacks rather than the typical M2 setbacks of, I don't know, they're 15 feet or 25 feet. So it's a no-build zone. You can see there's a temporary structure in the no-build zone, but that's allowable, not permanent buildings. So that pushed the siting backwards and also took away the capability of building on the land for 100 feet from the lot line, and that extends all the way from Haggard to Inkster. But it's protection of the existing landowners' rights because there's a residence there. And that's so when the assessor talks about excess land and we bring up the easement, and I'm not telling. I didn't go talk to someone at PP&D. I was part of the process when the easement was put into place. Was part of the activity when this happened in 96 as it was beginning to be developed. This is what was required. So it ended up that this lot being irregular. This is how the development laid out, and I really can't deem there to be an additional land value when it's impacted by no build zones. The sale was true enough. It was between Mercury Metals and MacDon. Mercury Metals was an independent powder coating manufacturer, and MacDon bought everything, building equipment business. Mercury were a competitor. With one transaction, they buy out a competitor and they gain access to small parts powder coating. Their main facility on Moray has the large parts powder coating, and this gave them the ability to do the smaller, delicate parts. And so it was a business acquisition. And the pictures of the powder coating process, just trying to see if we've got a good one here. On page 5 and 6, the inside of it, and here's on the bottom of page 6, you can see that it's an out of focus picture, and there's things hanging down, 3 black things on every string. That's small. That's the assembly line for the powder coating for a small part, and the machine that the powder coats it is to the left of it. The other feature about this site is showing you on top of page 5 is there is no office. Top of page 5, there's a building with a roof structure where the coffee machine is. It's open to the outside, and the lockers for the employees are in the main area. So there's no finished area whatsoever, which is a negative, because you do, if anyone, MacDon doesn't need it because their offices are in Moray, but putting it on the market, you would need an office build out for whoever uses it. So that's a negative issue on the site. The value we had looked at now, the rental value was, again, this is just something we're doing this year and working on, is putting in a whole series of rents that we have on page 3, and then getting the mathematical formula, where does it intersect with 16,000 feet? And that answer was at $5.21. So this is our model, but at least you can see our data and how it works. And I think the transparency is essential. Looking at the numbers myself, again, I gotta watch how I say this, but I somewhat agree with the assessor that it is a good building. The drawbacks are the lack of office on it. I probably would think that the rent should be a bit higher than that myself, not in the levels that the assessor's at, but certainly there's a couple of rents I would myself probably be looking at of these properties in the $6 range. It should be in and around there. It's not warehousing. It's not set up for warehousing. It's got 2 little loading bays up front so you bring in the parts with a pickup truck, not in its you're not shipping goods in semi-trailers out of this site, and you're running it back and forth to Moray. So for the types of uses that the assessor's rents would have on it would require some substantial redevelopment. But again, probably $6 is a fair rate, and I don't have a number to recalculate it for that, but on a very simplistic way of doing this, I think the rent should be 15% higher, which means that the value in the long run should be 15% higher, just on a mathematical basis, and that would come out to $1,063,000 rather than $925,000. The vacancy, based on our same formula before, Inkster does have a lower vacancy rate. We blended that with the city rate, and it's at 5.2%. Inkster does have a very large population of industrial investment properties, so it is a good indicator. This area is called Inksbrook. It's not part of Inkster, but it's the closest district to it. The actual Inkster area is about 1.5 miles, 2 miles to the southeast. That and Inksbrook itself took a longer time to develop than many areas around it. Most of the surrounding uses ended up being large warehouse properties rather than this manufacturing site. The subject, of course, is much too small to be a large warehousing site, and the access is too poor. The other parameters we put in are the same as I've already discussed, and as far as the cap rate's concerned, again, question the alternate use. Somebody's looking for a 16,000 square foot shop would probably be interested in this, but you would have to spend some money on it. Modification, it was custom built for a small powder coating facility, so you'd have to do some loading dock changes, determine if your floor loading was good enough, and then probably arranged for semi-trailer access and turnarounds. That's why I wouldn't put a lower cap than we have, because I could see an investment required down the road, and your higher cap puts then that risk back into it for alternate use. So our final number is $1,063,000, and that's based on a $6 rent with the same numbers above. I understand it's lower than last year. Today is anomaly day, which you're hearing are not standard industrial buildings. You're hearing the ones that are out of the ordinary. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Frolick, questions?
Okay, 2 questions. Like on page 2, would there not be a lot of good access to loading and unloading in the front part of the building? Because on page 2, you have two doors that show good shipping, receiving access. Would that not be a positive, and wouldn't there be enough room for turning radiuses?
Well, yeah, okay. There are small doors, so they're small truck doors. So what I was saying is, if for alternate use, you'd want a semi-trailer door, and that would require a larger door, and then the ramp leading up to it would have to be adapted, because you can't park your semi on a ramp. You have to park it on a flat area. So you have to extend the ramp up front and then do have a turnaround area in the grassed area up front. So it's all doable. It's just money. That's all. You'd have to spend a couple $100,000.
There's nothing without money. And in terms of office space, I'm referencing page 9 of my brief. If the panel members can go there. Is everyone on page 9 of my brief?
Yes.
Okay. So would there not be potential to build an office where all the current cars are parked at if they want to do a building expansion for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not disagreeing, but the point is it's not there now. So you got to spend money to put it in. And our value is what it's today, not what it is tomorrow after we've imagined new changes to it.
But the point is, would all these changes not lead to a higher market rent?
Well, you'd have more space and then you get higher rent. Sure you would.
Okay.
Not disagreeing at all, but it's not today.
Okay. And so does your client feel that this property has gone down $600,000 since they purchased it in 2012?
First of all, my client did not purchase it for its real estate value. They purchased it for its contribution to their 1 million square foot plus tractor manufacturing campus as a needed part of the business. So in their business, that's not their business real estate investment. Their business is making tractors.
So if it's less than $1.6 million, why wasn't that stated on the transfer of title?
Well, that's irrelevant. I mean, there's no dispute that they gave the guy $1.6 million. What I'm saying is they also bought out a business competitor and they expanded their small powder coating facility, and they got equipment.
But wouldn't some of that business value also be translated in the $2 million sale that took place that wasn't registered with land titles?
Well, you talk about this $2 million sale, but you haven't substantiated. I got 1.6. You got a title that says 1.6. You got to report it at 1.6. That's what's on the table today. Okay. And so it may be possibly you've misinterpreted the numbers, but you've never put them forward for us to examine. Okay. All that's been put forward to examine is 1.6, which I'm saying included all those factors.
No further questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Badley.
So if I'm looking at your picture on page number 1, I just want to look at the concept of additional land. And when I understand, you're saying that there's a no-build zone that's 100 feet from the residence. Is that correct?
100 feet from the east side property line.
From the east. Okay, so that's where the residence is.
Correct. You can see about the middle of the property on its east side is the house.
Right.
And there's ostriches and all sorts of strange animals. Well, that was a few years ago.
Generally, when you look at the concept of a no-build zone, it's in a circle around the residence. It's 100-foot circle around the residence.
No, it's 100 feet from the lot line. The strange thing about this particular no build is they only had the 100 feet applied, whereas Fort Garry, who are to the south, have 150 feet plus an enforced 50-foot green zone. So this one was a bit more lax on it. I think with Fort Garry, because their style of operation, the planners wanted a greater separation. But it's down the land on all the land on the east side were farms and with residences on them until maybe the last 10 years. I think most of them moved out.
Okay.
And there was a mink farm at one point somewhere around here.
Right, I recall that.
That's in North Kildonan too, on McIver.
All right, so the 100 feet from the east property line, if you ran that straight down, I'm assuming that's around the edge of the building, you ran it straight down. Is there not still a sizable piece of land that could be used for an addition to the property, which is what the assessor is saying?
Well, Yeah, but he was careful and he did describe it as not being developable on its own. It's potential for this, and whether or not there's additional land value. I mean, the concept of adding value to a property, the way that the assessment department is done, is that the theory is incorrect. And let's all go back to grade 2. And what's the first lesson they taught you when they were teaching us math? You don't mix multiplication with addition. It's not a formula. And it's the same in appraisal. You do not say, I got an income approach on the building and I can add a number for excess land. We don't do that. What you do is, if there is a value in that, you express it in its potential to earn if you're doing the income approach. So could you put a compound back there and get rent for it? It would be, or is there a compound back there to get rent for? And is there a value to having that excess land to the main building where you can have a higher rental rate? And find a comp that has the same land building ratio. So their theory is just is incorrect. It's not proper. So if you ask me to comment on there's an extra value to it, I gave you the only way you can prove it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's all my questions.
I thank you. Kent, questions of
Sure, just a quick question on page 1. Is the retention pond on the left side of the photo?
The retention pond is what?
Is that on the left side of your photo on page 1?
Yeah, that's right. The retention pond is on the left side of the photo.
Okay, super. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
either party want summary?
No, thank you.
Mr. Newfield?
I think you gave me lots of opportunity to summarize during the presentation. I'm good.
Okay, we'll go to the last one on the docket, which is 1456 Church. Mr. Frolick, whenever you're ready.
Yep, file number is 223058. Roll number is 140639600800. We have assessed value of $2,318,000. Actual year built is 1966. Effective year built is 1971. We have 14-foot ceiling heights. We have a land area of 81,640. We have a leasable area of 38,000 square feet and land to building ratio of 2.15 per 2.5. So it's lower than the industry standard. Property owner has been compliant with regards to filling out the income and expense mailer. And what's interesting here is there is a sworn value of $860 in 2007. But what's interesting here is there's a Canada Post lease of 24,000 square feet, which is almost 2/3 of the building at $6 a square foot. It's been documented that this is a net lease for $6, which is significantly higher than our model generated lease that we're using. On page 2 are some subject property pictures that we have on file, showing some pictures of the building. On page 2 and 3, it is located on the Inkster Industrial Park on Church, so people are familiar with that. It is a unique shape of this property. And what we have here, so you could see the uniqueness of the shape here with regards to the rail line and that on the southwest corner of it. What you'll also notice here right now is that the lot beside it, the assessed value is at $250,000. That value has been reduced through the border revision process. And they also use some of that area. I don't have any details on it, but you can see the same type of truck is to the east of the property as it is to the west of the building, and they are utilizing it. So with that being said, there is a parking requirement that's on here that's been negotiated with regards to the tenant and the property owner. Page 5 shows the pictures of the buildings that we have per se. And what we have here is, so we have the market income on page 6. So what we have here is we have 2 leasable areas of 7,000 square feet, and we have the lease in place for 24,000 square feet. So we had mentioned that the net rent is $6 that they're actually coming in with, and yet we're charging $4.48 because older building, low ceiling height, but they're actually getting $6. When we look at the total GPI, we have 174,300. And then, but the reported rent that they receive is 181,950. And if we actually just jump ahead here right now and look to page 12 of my brief, is everyone there?
Just 1 second.
No worries.
Thanks.
Okay, so I just want to show that we're reporting a rent of 174,300, and they're reporting a rent of 181,950. Moving forward from there, we use a 4% vacancy loss, 3% for expenses, 385. We're coming up with a rental rate of 156, 456. Cap rate is at 6.75%, so it is higher than the last property that we just looked at because it's an older building, right? So that's to show that we're consistent in our thought process here. So what I have here is I got some other some rents that are in the Inkster Industrial Park. The range is between 8,000 square feet to 35,000 square feet. We're showing a range of rents from 650 to 1275, just in the general area. Our model rent's significantly lower than that, but I just want to just to show, you know, and some of those ceiling heights are a bit higher, some are lower, but just to say that we're being reasonable in our approach to valuation. We've discussed page 9 of the property, and then just referencing page 12 again. So there's 2 things to look at here on page 12 and page 14. So there are some recoveries taking place here. So they're reporting the actual rent of 181,950. We're lower than that. They are getting some recoveries. So not knowing completely, but they're showing recoveries. For what I could speculate is for the Canada Post portion of the lease, right? So, you know, $36,000 in property tax recoveries is quite a bit of money. So we're showing a total net income of 227,603. We have all the other expenses listed here. And I just want to quickly reference something here. Yeah, and so we're showing that 38,380 is the square footage area. If we look at page 14 of our brief, we're showing that 2 of the leases are actually net. You know, so we have net leases here that are being reported, and I just want to double check here for 1 sec. So we got 3062.5 times 12 equals 36,000 divided by 7,000 square feet. So we're showing the second portion of the lease with the manufacturing at $5.25 that they're claiming net. And so that's something interesting to note as well. And that concludes my final presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yeah. Now you mentioned the lot next door, and you said something about the same type of vehicle parked on it. You mean Canada Post vehicles?
That is correct.
So did it occur to you that that the rent included parking on a different roll?
Well, see, because they haven't included any information with regard to that on the mailer, so I could only speculate. But what I can say though is that the $6 rent that's being used, that's being paid for, probably is a factor in that. But without having access to the leasing information, or there was no information provided on that roll number to the east of the subject property, I can't comment.
Well, Okay, but I think you said that you saw that it had gone through the board of revision already. You didn't check what statements were made there?
With regards to the last hearing, yeah, all I know is from the last hearing that the assessed value for this property was $1,850,000. It wasn't taken to the municipal board, and you're asking for a value of $845,000. So that's what I do recall.
I'm talking about the lot next door.
Oh, the lot like next door. Okay, so the lot next door, the assessed value that we have for this property, the assessed value was at, let me just check it out here. It was assessed at $250,000. The new assessed value is at $160,000, and I've noticed you've done a $250,000 deduction on your brief.
Okay, but was there any information presented at that hearing about the parking from this location?
Due to our workload, I have no other information other than what I've told you today.
Okay. And on your page 14.
Yep.
So this was the return from 2020. And so at that point, it was showing a vacancy of 7,000 square feet, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so that's about 18%, and you're applying what number?
We're applying a vacancy of 4%, but we actually look at the GPI that's been reported. It's significantly lower than they reported GPI of 181, almost $182,000. We have $174,000, and you're reporting $82,000.
Okay, so I'm just that wasn't the question. I was just asking about the comparing the actual vacancy to the what you're using. There's a big difference, right?
Well, you know what, but the property does have a vacancy issue.
It's just a math question. Simple.
No, but there is a vacancy issue here that's taking place, but I'm not too sure how aggressive the property owner has been in with regards to trying to lease this property out at $3.57 a square foot.
Are you saying they don't want to lease their empty space?
Well, I don't know what they're trying to lease out the property at. You know what I mean? Because I'm assuming that if we use the $3 rent for unheated storage space in Transcona, that the actual rent would be a lot higher than $3.50 a square foot.
Okay, but just it's not the question again. You're drifting off here.
Oh, the point is, you asked me about vacancy. I've acknowledged that there's a vacancy issue here, but in the overall valuation of this property, our net income or our GPI is supported by the mailer.
Not the question I'm asking. You said in a statement
I've acknowledged
you don't think that they're trying to market.
Can we have just questions and answers, please? Thank you.
In your statement, you said you don't think they were marketing yet.
I did say that, but I just to expedite the process, the mailer is showing that there's 7,000 square feet vacated on a 38,000 square foot building.
Okay. Now you also said property tax recoveries, and I believe you're referring to page 12, were $36,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How much were the taxes actually? Yeah, that's line item 216.
Well, the reported taxes in 2020 was $45,546. So they're recovering 36,000 square feet.
So there's a shortfall of almost $9,000. Does that not indicate that we have some semi-gross leases?
Well, it's hard to dictate because I think the difference between the $46,000, roughly speaking, And what they recovered is that the property of a portion which has been vacated,
The portion that was vacated, so.
which doesn't have, so if the property was 100% full, then I'm sure the recovery would be a lot closer to the 45,000 than the $37,000 that's been reported.
Are you familiar with a federal lease?
Yeah, federal leases are not 100% net, but what it all comes down to, it comes down to what are they reporting for the net income for this property, and it's $182,000, which is almost $100,000 more than what you've reported for
Well,
for
when I'm
rental
asking
income.
questions about my work, I'm just
Well,
asking.
I'm answering questions, but what it boils down to is like, you could dissect any particular way, but at the bottom line, we're looking at the overall market value for this property. And so to me, this property is that even if it's a semi-gross, it's a federal lease, what we have here is they reported $6, and I'm sure we have $4.48. So the $1.52 more than makes up for whatever potential shortfall, I'm assuming that exists.
Okay, well, making this more confusing than it should be. I asked a question, you answered the federal lease, they're not always net. That was the question.
And then I answered, and then I added that there was a $1.52 premium.
Okay, wasn't the question. Now, did you take a look at, sorry, I'm just reading something else. I'm looking at this. Do you know what this on your page 12, page 14, the third line item was? It says vacant, but then it has a monthly rent of $43.75, which appears to be gross.
I have no information about that line.
Okay. Okay. I guess it corresponds to their concept of vacancy loss, which is then recorded on page 13. Comes to 52,500.
I guess so.
Okay. So that number is their concept of $750 a foot, which is their gross lease potential they're reporting to you, or do you read it any other way?
I don't have the information to answer that question.
Okay. The original building being, so I have to re-rotate my view here. There's a land plan area of 2.15. Is that rather low?
It's not perfect, but what we've noticed is that they passed the initial zoning requirements with regards to the building of this property, and that to have such a low ratio is not unheard of in industrial strip malls.
Not asking that, isn't it? It's low. I mean, your last one was higher and you asked for land value. So my question is, this one's low. Why don't you put in a land deduction?
Well, the deduction exists in the $1.52 difference in the model rent that we're using, and with regard to the actual rent being paid. So we're not using for the Canada Post lease, we're not using $4. We're using $4.52 while they're getting $6.
Page 4 shows an irregular configuration. Is that taken into account on the utility of the land?
We do not. We do have it in our model, but there's not an actual mathematical calculation that I see based on what I presented here today.
All those vehicles that are parked on that picture are no more than 24 feet likely. What about the prospect of semi-trailer loading and unloading? Does this site have that potential?
Not at this time.
Well, would it ever?
Well, as you said, a lot of things potentially could happen. You know, if they decided to demolish part of that building, then there could be better access to it. So as you said, everything costs money, and everything is possible.
Well, there's the current loading dock is on the left side of the picture, and the railway tracks would prohibit any sort of,
But it's not unheard of for industrial properties, and there's one on Buffalo Place where they actually reduced the building size to improve the access for trucking purposes.
but you're not allowed to assess on a prediction, are you?
No, but we're looking at speculation, and so when we're looking at the overall value for this property, we have it assessed at $2,318,000. Which works out to $61 a square foot, which is actually quite reasonable for properties that are in the Inkster Industrial Park.
The 14-foot ceiling height, that's an external measurement, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So interior would be
Cool.
in that, okay. Well, sure, because you have the picture on page 3, and there's a 12-foot door there, and the trusses are right at the top, so 12 feet. Isn't that rather low for an industrial use?
This is an older stock property, and then the rent is reflected in that.
And I just had one more question, and I just was wanted to just quickly look up something. Just a second or two. The rents you selected on page 7. These are your choices,
These are our rents from the income and expense mailer process. Yes.
and are you sure that 1551 Church is not a gross lease?
Based on the information that presented to us through our vetting process, I believe it's a net lease, but the point is it's significantly higher. So even if it's a gross lease, you take away our 385 for shortfall, you're looking at just just under $9.
Okay, but that wasn't the question. So you don't have the documentation.
Well, the point is, the question is that a gross lease? And I said through our vetting process, I believe that it's net. However, to let me finish, if we take our 385 for shortfall, it would be $9, and our model rents are just under $5, $4.75.
Okay, and who's the user at 1551 Church?
You know what? It's I'm not at liberty to say. I don't believe so.
Okay. I'm just looking at a picture of the building, and it looks like an office. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
I thank you. Ms. McFadden.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Salim.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chair.
I have none either. So, Mr. Newfield, your presentation.
Yes, I'm just actually I see something in here that I don't like.
And what might that be?
And I'm going to try to change this real quick on you. Essentially, we have a building that's has one prime tenant, which is Canada Post, and the assessor is correct. It is not a true net lease. They actually get use of the parking lot next door, which is on a separate roll, and it doesn't contain full recoveries. There's a lot of things they don't pay for. The other two tenants are what we've done here is we've shown you on page 3 is the one tenant, Natco. That rent works out to around $525 a square foot, and that is also a semi-gross number. And the new tenant who came in, and that's on page 4. This is not post-reference. We did check this out. They moved in May 1st, 21, but the deal was done prior to April 1st of 21. And that's $3,800 gross, pure gross. And so that's 651 gross. So the workup here on our workup was, I don't think it was a fair characterization. I wouldn't have put 357 across the board. I'm not really disagreeing with the assessor's rent on the larger one. The smaller ones, they are performing lower. So I'm trying to work my way to the middle here. Sorry, it's 1456.
Mr. Newfield, do you want 5 or 10 minutes?
No, I just found the folder and I'm opening it up, and I'm was going to make a change, and I'll give you the number. The actual income should be based on performance on the that they were getting in indicated by the rent of the site that filled up, and I don't think a vacancy allowance in this case is appropriate because it was yes, it was for a year, but that's not a chronic vacancy. So I'm was thinking that the number would be closer to
Which number?
I think the number that we presented on the of 357 is more appropriate for the gross lease that they drew up. So I was just wanted to change the other number and reduce the vacancy, and I want to get out of here just like you do. So
well, we want you to be correct also in regards to your presentation and your numbers.
Sure. And I'm just this is all
Okay, Mr. Newman. Pretty bad, eh?
Someone was calling, I don't know, can't remember. I know I get mad at the full leak thing, but someone was calling me someone. Was it you, Mr. Merrick? You called me something wrong 3 times in a row? You called me frolic, I think, 3 times in a row or something.
Yes, I know. We had a problem one day. Mr. Newfield,
I'm sorry for speaking out of turn.
what if we take 5 minutes?
okay.
Sounds awesome.
Super. Thanks.
All right. Just,
Yeah.
we'll shut
Yes,
it down.
Mr.
Okay. So we'll take a good 5 minutes and you can work through the numbers. We'll call the hearing back to order. Mr. Newfield, you were redoing some of the figures for 1456 Church Avenue. So the floor is yours.
Okay. I was just eating Smarties. I mean, I was looking at the numbers, and I did notice that there was a break here on the application. It wasn't right. So for the post office, I'm going to use the same rent that the assessor has at $447, and what that does is it accounts for the fact that the $6 rent is not fully net, and accounts for the parking next door. The other space, the 14,000 feet, one of the rents is at $525, the other one's about $375, so I've applied that at $4. And those are the actuals. So my potential income is 163,280.
163,280.
Say that again, Mr. Neufeld?
163,280.
So sorry, what was your average rent?
Oh, $4.30.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, on your income workup, just so for clarification, you took $250,000 away for the property. Are you excluding that? Is that a part of your calculation?
You're just getting ahead of the game here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Impatient, aren't you?
Well, Mr. Neufeld, it's 4 properties here. It's noon. I'm getting hungry.
And if you hadn't interrupted, you would have been gone by now.
Proceed.
Thank you. I've also going to accept the 4% vacancy because I think it was a periodic vacancy. It's not a chronic issue.
Okay.
So after 4%, the number is 156749. There was an error in our calculation of a shortfall, and so I'm using $3.85. But I'm also putting in 5% for non-recoverables. There are obviously a lot of non-recoverables, and 2% for reserve for the 7%. So my NOI is now 139,924. And the cap is, I didn't change it at 7.5. I will briefly explain that. For the number of, comes to 1,865,658, rounded to 1,866,000. And since the rent's been adjusted for the parking, I'm not requesting an adjustment for 1444 Church's value. I think that's been established already in the selection of rental rate. So 1,866,000. Nothing like doubling my value, but but it did. But there were some errors, and the cap rate issues, just to be clear on what they are, is it's the irregular shape of the land. The fact that on its own it does not have enough land, there's not room for semi-trailer turning, and this is industrial. You need semi-trailer. It's a low ceiling, it's an older building, and the income was obviously not good stability. Those were the issues. I haven't changed, and that hasn't changed at 7.5. So that's my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Frolick, questions of Mr. Neufeld?
No, I think, so I'm done. I'm tired. I'm done. Any other questions? Everything's been addressed. You know what I mean?
Linda, questions of Mr.
No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Kent, questions of Mr. Neufeld?
No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Either party wants some summation?
No,
I'm gonna be real quick. I'm aware that this number is very close to last year, and I think that the reason is that you have one tenant who's on a long-term federal. That's not going to change its income, and then we have the other parts of it. The building was designed as a single tenant operation. It's been demised, and the space is inferior. On that basis, and I don't see much. The market's not respecting increases in property unless you have 27, 29-foot ceilings. 12-foot doesn't cut it. Thank you.
Can I have a summation though as well?
No, you can't.
All I'm saying is this is one of those properties. Let me just finish, please.
All right.
This is one of those properties where we didn't have to waste an hour of our lives on. If Mr. Neufeld's number was closer to a bit from what it was in 2020, we could have saved ourselves a lot of time. That's my summation.
All right.
Yeah, and then I just want to say I called him, tried to talk to him this morning, and he didn't want to talk.
Oh. When you start at the bottom of the barrel, there's no place to go up.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Frolick. Thank you very kindly for your presentation. Have a good lunch. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Mr. Neufeld, have a good day, everyone.
Your presentations and the results very soon, and have a pleasant day.
Yeah, and Mr. Neufeld, talk to your son. We need to do some work for Monday's due date.
We've heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.